This is Adrian, my driving instructor. This is Leo, the owner of the race school. This is a stock 2007 Impreza 4-speed automatic with all-wheel drive and a missing ABS fuse running on Pirelli gravel tires. After about 130 hours of rally racing in the sim, these two are going to help me unfuck some of the bad habits I've picked up along the way. I'll show you my fastest lap, at the end of which Adrian said, and then a voiceover for another lap where I'm addressing all the technical bits and what was going on in my head. That voiceover lap turned out to be... Welcome to Lou Cartoons. I'm Looney Lou, and today we went from shaking in the sim to grinding rims. You may have noticed I have my RaceLab hoodie on, because I owe a very special thank you to the people at RaceLab for this, especially Leo. As well as my instructor Adrian, hit him up for some really insightful coaching. Check out their website for more information. RaceLab has all sorts of packages you can choose from, and they use all sorts of tracks all across Southern Ontario. Today's excursion was filmed at Millhaven Quarry, a little place just outside Kingston in Southern Ontario. Of the several tracks that RaceLab uses, this one is easily my favorite. It's a combination of degraded and crumbling tarmac along with various levels of gravel. And when it's wet, it becomes really slippery with occasional puddles. They can be pretty fun. Here's a general overview of the track. The start line's here at the bottom, and the finish line's up here at the top. There's a lot of technical biddies with very few fast sections. The car I drove today was this bad boy. It's naturally aspirated, and when we were driving it on the track, all we did is just leave it in second gear, like in the little manual gear selector thingy. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Now, working as a marshal for most of the day, I had the opportunity to walk the track and feel out certain areas that are kind of sketchy. This first segment of the course, right off the start line, it has a lot of degraded tarmac with a transition into a gravel loop around the windmill. There are some dodgy puddles on the inside. There's another transition after the loop back onto the choppy tarmac for a short straight, and the transition is kind of really slippery because all the cars are dragging the gravel and wetness and nastiness onto the tarmac, making it even more slippery than you might anticipate. The tarmac then has an open square left with a gravel patch in the middle of the turn, which makes car control kind of tricky. Anytime there's a transition on this course from gravel to asphalt, it's going to be slippery because the cars are just dragging all the loose surface onto the hard packed stuff. On the far left in this corner here, you can see that there's a hairpin, which again has a gravel patch, making it pretty tricky. There is a chicane halfway through this second tarmac stretch that leads into a long gravel left-hander that can be pretty slippery. This leads into a long downhill into a slippery chicane that turned out to be my biggest gotcha point.
Not again!
After that chicane, we go into a nice, long, right-hand downhill, which is, again, very slippery, leading into what we call the pit. This is a literal gigantic open mining pit where limestone is dug up. First thing in the pit, we have a very long and, again, very slippery, decreasing radius left-hand turn here. There's a short straight, which dives into a square right, which then dives into an even tighter square left. After that, there's an easy medium-ish right where you can just go flat out until the finish line, like pedal to the metal kind of thing. And then it goes into an increasing radius left-hander, which you can carry a lot of speed through with one final long right-hand turn over the finish line. After that, you hop onto the transit road, which is just like on the upper edge of the bowl of the quarry. You drive like a granny on the transit road all the way back to the finish line. It's on this transit stretch that most of the debriefing would happen. Once we were back at the start line, we maybe talk for a little bit long and then take notes in our respective notebooks. Like, this track isn't really meant to be fast. It's supposed to be super technical. Plus, because it's pretty loose surface, the reaction time of the car is even slower. And the fact that I'm in an automatic with a torque converter and not a clutch, I have to allow even more time for things to happen, if that makes sense. So speed wasn't really what we were going for. It was solely focused on technique. Now, I was the last student of the day, so I only had 5 laps to work with, which really is not a lot. So I had to make the best of it. So here we'll watch an unedited lap, and then I'll walk you through the next one.
And then stay wide.
Yep. Slow down on this exit, watch the pilot.
Ah, not you, baby! There we go. Okay, stay wide.
Yeah, power. Yeah.
A little too much oversteer there. Whatever. Okay, stay extra wide, turn in late.
Yeah. Brake.
We're gonna brake early just for funsies. Ooh, a little bit wide there. Okay.
Caution.
Yeah. Okay, and we're going downhill here. Come on, turn. There we go. And then patience through here. And then...
Go to the left. Yep.
Okay.
Very good. Slow corner. Yep. Woohoo!
Okay, and then wide here too. Oh, a little bit too wide.
Power. Keep going. Keep the power down.
Oh, too wide of an exit there.
No. No. Not too wide on the exit. Really good.
Thank you.
The car was sliding and he didn't fight it. That was fast.
Alright, now I'll talk you through what's going on. Right off the start, the first thing I did was pretty straightforward. It was an acceleration and a braking test, just to see what the car could do. Or couldn't do, for that matter. On tarmac and in a straight line, this is the best acceleration and slowing that the car is going to have, period. After that, into our first left-hander, I tried to find lift-off oversteer to see how much input between the pedal and wheel I had to give for the car to do what I wanted it to. Now, for this long left-hander around the windmill, it was a similar thing as what we just did. I tried to brake in a straight line, because now we're on gravel, so it's going to be different. And then just gassed it throughout the duration of that long left-hander around the windmill. On this particular lap, I didn't trust the car too much, but with each lap, I was braking deeper into the corner and braking into the turn, if that makes sense. I was trying to keep consistent-ish throttle throughout the duration of this turn while adjusting slightly to address over and understeer. And you can see I was adding more steering and throttle input simultaneously until I felt that oversteer. I would catch the car and then do the same thing again just to get a feel as to how reactive it was, if that makes sense. This was helping me find the limit for future laps. We had a short gravel straight and then a hard left onto the tarmac, which again was deceivingly slippery. In this left-hander here, I was testing the lateral grip. The camber worked in my favor to keep me, from sliding to the outside, but because there's so much dirt and gravel and crap getting dragged onto the asphalt, the camber didn't really do much, so it balanced it. I deliberately entered slower than I thought I had to, but it was still almost too much speed. We had an asphalt straight, then a left hand into another asphalt straight with a gravel patch right in the middle. And this was very interesting. Because of that gravel spot mid-turn, seeing how the car react to the surface transition was very important. I failed to anticipate the change in grip during this transition. So as soon as my wheels went onto the gravel, I had a bit of understeer, but as soon as it went back onto the asphalt, I had a whole lot of oversteer because I had too much wheel input. So you can see in this video, I was actually scrambling to correct it instead of anticipating it, trying to keep the wheel relatively straight while going over that transition. Being proactive, that's the term I was looking for. So this here was the fastest stretch, and Adrian was continuously prompting me to use all of the road, and it's a good thing he did. I was doing a second tarmac braking test, and that was the first time I was really seeing how tight this car could turn. So braking early-ish turned out to be very important here because there's way less traction than you think there is. And again, because it's a hairpin, you have to find out how quickly the car can turn around a tight corner. I had to turn in hard and late to avoid running wide on the corner exit. And in this clip, I was asphalt mode and therefore trail braking into the corner because I was focused more on what kind of surface was below me. But Adrian straight up said, don't overthink it.
The braking zone is great, but you, I think, carried the brakes into the turn.
Yeah,
I would have lifted right off the brakes to get some lift off oversteer, and then right back on power immediately. We would have shot out a little bit quicker, I think.
And because it's a surface transition, don't overthink it. Just treat it like a loose surface, because that's more or less what it is. Okay, next up we have the tarmac chicane. So on entry, it was a very gentle lift off the gas pedal, turn the wheel, apply brake to get the nose to dive in. By the time I'm mid-chicane, lift off the brake, turn the wheel back to the left, gas it to get the car to rotate. And when I say lift off the brake, not gently, just dump the brakes. And in this particular car, pedal overlap was especially important because the drivetrain was so sluggish because of the torque converter. By the time you're halfway through, you're gassing it all the way out. That led into the mixed surface left-hander I was saying was really slippery. So this is another one of those spots where the lift, turn, and brake to get the car to aggressively go sideways was especially important. Because I want to gas it as soon as possible so I can accelerate decently well out of this turn. So earlier we did kind of a cautious lift, turn, and brake to get the car into the chicane. And now we're doing it super aggressively. And I was also pointing out in this little clip of me walking the track that
one wheel on the asphalt, one wheel on the gravel. Lift, turn, tap the brakes, and get back on the gas just to get that sideways action.
one tire on my front axle on each surface. Like on the inside it would have been tarmac and on the outside it would have been gravel. So my wheels should have been turned by the time they hit those two different contact patches, and that's when I tapped the brakes. Getting sideways sooner than later would just allow neutral steer while you're able to gas it on the exit. Now, for the downhill chicane, A, because you just came out of a long left-hander and you have a lot of speed, and 2, because this is a downhill entry, speed control is vital for this, okay? Koss, one of the school instructors, is an incredible driver. And there were many times where he would rip by because he's doing some admin, instructing, whatever. And I'd see him like sideways slide on entry, whip the car sideways, and then gas it out. Like, I don't know how he did this. He wasn't a manual Subi, so maybe that definitely made a difference actually, but still. ABS was off for the duration of this training session, just so we're all on the same page. After that chicane, we continued downhill into a long right-hander, where lift-off oversteer was the way to go about it, which leads us into the pit area. Don't touch any of the pedals with your feet. You just lift off the gas pedal, turn, and let the car just do its thing. It'll take a couple seconds to rotate, and it took longer than I thought it would to get the car to rotate too. There is a slight crest there that's going to help
to get the back end swung out. That little dip is going to be perfect.
If you don't lift off, you're just going to end up understeering throughout the duration of that turn, which is the last thing you want. You want to be, like, I guess, sideways, sliding down that hill a little bit, so you can, again, be straight on exit and just gas it. On one of my laps, I did try flooring it with the gas pedal and just tapping the brakes a couple times on the downhill while turning the car.
Come on, turn. There we go.
First off, it didn't work, and secondly, Adrian did point out
That could get dangerous. The downhill, don't brake it abruptly. Like you touch the brakes twice. You can, or you can just lift off, because you're just upsetting the car a little bit too much. And then it's like motorsports, okay? Big racetrack, or higher speed, turn, the back end will slide out and it's spin.
Yeah, we don't want that.
internally I was trying to keep the engine spooled up so I have a bit more aggression on exit. But I forgot, I was driving an automatic that was locked in second gear, and I don't have a turbo, so that was practically useless. So again, getting the car to slide on this particular turn was the fastest way through, and lift off oversteer was the way to go about it. Next, we dive into this long left-hander, which is actually a decreasing radius turn, meaning the further into the turn you go, the tighter it gets. So it basically starts as a 4 left, and then finished as a 2 left, if that makes sense. Gassing it hard in the corner was essential because you were bleeding off speed as you progressed through the turn. And this was an excellent spot to exercise the string theory. Now, the string theory is pretty simple. The idea for string theory is there's a string attached to the top of your gas pedal, and the other end is connected to the bottom of your steering wheel. So the idea is that the more you turn the wheel, the more you lift the pedal in either direction. Doing this is basically going to allow you to maintain like that limit of grip or just below grip. So anytime you take a crest, a slippery turn, anything like that, you want to lift off the gas in order to maintain that balance, because there's another part to it too. When you floor it with the gas pedal, the car is going to tilt backwards, lurching forwards, if that makes sense. You have minimal control with your front wheels, and most of the weight is being transitioned onto the rear. When you lift off the gas and stomp on the brakes, the opposite happens, where the weight shifts from the rear to the front, and you're sliding like so. You have minimal control with the rear, so it has a natural tendency to want to give out, but you have all sorts of control with the steering, so you actually need less steering input to get the same effect as you normally would than if your car was just cruising in a straight line. And that is essentially what dictates oversteer and understeer. So the string theory, by lifting off the gas and turning the wheel, you are maintaining a balanced state, because we're gassing it into that turn, and because we're gently lifting off while we turn, the car is horizontal and level throughout the duration of it. Does that make sense? If not, just drop a comment. I can make a whole other video on that. If you're doing that string theory thing properly, where you keep the car level while it's in a turn, it's neutral steer in the sim is a pretty good way of knowing that you got it. But in real life, the car will feel like it's floating almost, because you're maintaining a 4-wheel slide. And that's exactly what you want. That float and 4-wheel slide is the limit of traction for all 4 wheels. That's the car telling you you are going as fast as possible through said turn. Adrian pointed out, wait until you can see through the gate before flooring it. Once you see through the gate, that's when you know you're good to straighten the wheel and just gas it out. And that's what Adrian was referring to when he was saying,
patience through here.
throughout the duration of that turn. Don't gas it too soon, because otherwise you're just going to spin out and oversteer the car. And you can see, because it's a decreasing radius turn, the string theory still applied. And you can see that, like, with my hands here, the average, like, input of the wheel was actually decreasing, even though I was fine-tuning. And therefore, I was gradually lifting off the gas pedal as we got deeper and deeper into the turn. You can't really see it, unfortunately, but you could feel it if you were in the back seat, but you weren't. I'm sorry. I'll take you for a ride someday.
And that's like a patience thing. Like the one turn, some corners, you're going at like 10 tenths. They still need patience, even though it's 10 tenths.
Now, that was a bit of a tangent. I apologize. Then we sprinted straight for a bit and dove into a square right. This is another flat spot where we have to swing the car as aggressively as possible. And therefore, this is where we use the lift off the gas pedal, turn the wheel, and apply the brake pedal. That's going to get the most amount of turn in. Now, if you say out loud, lift, turn, brake, lift, turn, brake, lift, turn, brake. That was the approximate timing that I was doing the actual movements with my feet. You could see the car takes about a second to rotate. Obviously, my wheel was turned in, but I didn't start to straighten out until I really felt the back end start to swing out with a bunch of momentum. That's when I straightened out and floored it. You can also see that I turned plenty early, as the extra loose and slippy surface makes it really hard to control, and everything is just mushy, if that makes sense. Especially because right after that, you go a little downhill and you dive into another square turn, which is this time a left-hander. But again, the whole lift, turn, brake is just as important, especially because we've bled off a lot of speed. Coming out of that, we have a medium-ish right-hander where string theory was again exercised, but instead of decelerating, as it's a decreasing radius, it was an accelerating thing with an increasing radius. So in a super high horsepower car, yeah, string theory would be kind of key there. But in this particular vehicle, floor it. Pedal to the metal and just pray to God for the rest. You don't actually have to pray. It's a pretty safe trading environment, don't worry. You just kind of stay flat-footed throughout the duration of that entire turn, which then transitions into a nice, long, and very slippery left-hander. And yes, you're going to feel understeer because you're trying to accelerate. That's fine. This is one of the few scenarios, because we're on gravel, that understeer is actually a good thing. And then throughout that final lap, same thing, pedal to the metal, understeering throughout the duration of the turn. You do want to turn nice and early though and get that sideways action so you can gas it or just be in a straight line as soon as possible coming out of that turn. Crazy Leo did hop in the backseat for my 5th and final lap, and he had some pointers for me.
Thumbs in.
And remember, don't hit
Thumbs
the
in.
kids.
Okay.
And then just the last one, because you're not being timed, the last puddle as a bump. And we were like, because of Adrian, like I told you, mechanical sympathy, I was telling everybody back off just before.
That last
Yeah,
puddle?
the last puddle going up.
Okay.
And you didn't do, not just you didn't back off, but you also were braking through it even worse. Just mechanical sympathy. If you were timed and the finish was there, sure. But if it's not timed, like back off for a couple of months.
In conclusion, and a general overview of everything, my biggest issue, oversending it. That has been a bad habit I've been grappling with since I first started driving. The Sim has helped me figure out how to find the limit and not crash. But that being said, I still have the bad habit of oversetting it because in the sim, you're in an environment where there are virtually no consequence. Overall, my line and respect for the elements, like the cones, the crests, like it's not bad. But I did still take out several pylons.
Oh, I clipped it, damn it.
I simply just got too excited. I did a pretty decent job at adapting to the car and to the conditions of the day, which were fairly unfamiliar to me. But still, like, it's still inexcusable, to be honest. Like, exercising more caution was very much needed. And even Adrian said, treat those cones like trees, because one day they might be. Plus, in a competition, like, those cones are going to be some fat penalties. Adrian summarized it well. Slow down on some entries. This is one of the reasons why rally racing is such an art. Being able to drive in real life was such a treat. You can actually feel the G-forces and the feedback of everything through your entire body and not just through the steering wheel. I really hope you learned something from that and that you found it useful. If you're confused about something or really don't understand something, drop a comment and I'll do what I can to help you learn. I hope you were able to learn from my mistakes. I'm Looney Lou. Stay tuned, my goons.